Sinister shows have always been part of the Halloween Haunt experience at Kings Island. The event begins its 2023 season this weekend. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about. All right, so we're going to do kind of a different episode today. We're going to talk about our top 5 favorite haunt shows. All right, we're
Yeah,
gonna go down the list. We predetermined this list of 5, and these are in no particular order. So Don, why don't you take the first one? What's the first one?
Ryan, let's go with Hot Blooded.
Yeah, I love that show. It's got the vampires and stuff, and I love all the pyro and the flames and really cool songs and so on. That show lasted for over 10 years, didn't it?
It did. It had quite the cult following that it had developed, and every night at Halloween Haunt, you would see a packed international showplace theater. It was great to see. And you talked about the songs. It was that rock and roll exploding onto the stage, and just really well done. I thought the choreography was really good. Very talented cast. One of my favorite all time shows at Kings Island.
Yeah, mine too. We're gonna get to Dead Awakening here soon. Spoiler alert! But I, when they added Dead Awakening, I was like, they're not gonna be able to top this. And I mean, Hot Blooded sits on the same shelf.
Mhm.
It's kind of arguable as to which one's better, but yeah, love that show. Uh,
And you see on social media all the time. Whenever the Halloween stuff comes up, since that show had kind of been, retired,
mhm.
or put in mothballs right now, because I'm sure at some point it may come back. But it's one of the things that you see more often than anything else about Halloween Haunt is bring back Hot Blooded. Yeah, it definitely had its following.
Absolutely.
All right, next, Ryan, and this is one of your favorite shows, I know. Ghouls Gone Wild.
Yeah, Ghouls Gone Wild. That was a fun one. That was the first time we had like a earnest show, I guess we should say, in the Fest House for Halloween Haunt. They had a daytime and a nighttime version, and they had some fun with making the nighttime one a little bit more spicy and stuff. But if I recall, they had Frankenstein's Bride. They had Frankenstein himself. So I guess that's a couple. Did they have a mummy? It's been a little while, but I
The
feel like they had a
Mummy,
mummy.
yeah, Mummy. They had the Werewolf
Mm,
was in it. Again, a great song selection for that show. Very popular with the park guest. Not the following that Hot Blooded had, but still one of those shows that fit what they were doing at that time for Halloween Haunt. Was great entertainment for those enjoying a meal in the Fest House. I missed that one.
I do too. And here's a little fun fact about that. One of the tech guys told me that he built an Easter egg into the show where since they had a window in the back of the set, he had it so the sun was rising in the east or sorry, the sun was going down as the show started, then it got completely dark and then it started to rise again at the end. So it was just something fun that they built into it. Yeah.
A lot of fun there. Now you made reference to this one, Dead Awakening, 2007. The show debuted. Now this is when Kings Island kind of elevated their Halloween event. It went from Fear Fest to Halloween Haunt, the brand that had launched at Knott's Berry Farm. It was going to be more intense, you know, um, not recommended for children, all those kind of things.
Right.
And this show, you know, was the show I believe that told everyone when they came in the fall, this wasn't the family-friendly Halloween event that you're used to, or the Kings Island that you're used to. This is totally off the charts, different. Um, Kind of a violent show, really, in a lot of ways with what was going on with it. But the songs were familiar
Hmm.
to the audience. The storyline was pretty easy to follow, I think. Very talented cast. Some of them actually went on to perform on national, Broadway and those kind of things. So a lot of really talented people in that show. But it was only around for a couple of years,
Hmm.
but still, a lot of guests remember it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember just seeing that show and being like, "What?" Like the funniest part was how I don't want to say show stops because it's not the correct term, but like the end of each scene where like the lights would get dark before the other performers come out on stage was always something terrible happened each time. So the audience wants to clap, but they also just saw a guy like hang himself. That was one, and then at the end they had the girl that was tied to the bed and stabbed to death, and they just left her there at the end of the
Yeah,
show.
yeah, it was my first year working at Kings Island as the PR manager, and we had a media event. It was up in the International Restaurant, and I had dressed up for
Mhm.
the media event. I was kind of like an Undertaker type thing,
Yeah.
and a couple people from the marketing department, after they saw the first run of Dead Awakening, and they saw some guests leaving, and parade going to guest services, because nobody expected this.
Mhm.
Fear Fest was, it was pretty tame. The mazes and those kind of things were, where everything was, but nothing outside the park was really too much different. But they were like, you might want to get all that stuff off your face. We're gonna have to go deal with some guests down at guest services about the show. But controversial for sure, but that's what they were going for at that time. I mean, it was going to be about blood, terror, gore. No one and nothing is off limits. That's when that all started to come about. And they did, say that, parental discretion was advised before you not only came to the event, but before you even walked into the theater for the show.
How effective is that when you say parental discretion's advised? Is that just do parents honestly say like, no, that's probably not appropriate for me, or can you just use that as leverage?
Everybody looks at it differently with that. Some did,
Hmm.
and then some, it's Kings Island. How bad can it be? And then they get there, and there's like you said, the stabbings and all those kind of things going on the stage are like, this is a little bit over the top. But it did have a nice 2-year run, and I still hear about that from people too. They'll ask me, is there any chance that show would ever come back? I don't know, but it was very well written by Kings Island's entertainment team, as was Hot Blooded, and done in house.
Hmm.
So a really good job there. So the next show I want to talk about, you and I, both became friends with this guy,
Hmm.
and just a great guy, and he had done a couple of years of summer runs at the park, but they brought him in to do a Halloween event, and that was again intended for mature audiences. Of course, I'm talking about Ed Alonzo.
Ed Alonzo. Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorites. I think it's a huge travesty that the park doesn't really use the Kings Island Theater for Halloween Haunt, since it's an entertainment based event, and that's a great. I understand that they use it for other stuff, but I'm always bummed out by that. But this year's 2013, they actually did, and I thought that it was going to be the same show as we had all season, but maybe an F word or two that like the general public couldn't handle. He took that show in a completely different direction. The core pieces were there from the initial show, but the comedy was definitely on a PG-13 plus kind of basis. He took what a show. I mean, but let's capitalize on that a little bit. It's if I recall, that's the one where he would get out of the straitjacket and he would slam the straitjacket on the ground and then undo it, and there would be a duck in it. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And he did that, I think, during the regular season too. I could be mistaken, but with this, when he would always have a member of the audience, pull like help him get into the straitjacket, and then he would openly insult them in like sometimes like pretty distasteful ways. And then, people were kind of in on it and stuff, but they would tighten it and he'd shriek like they like made it really tight or whatever. Very, very funny guy. I would love to see that guy come back. He's very genuine guy, very nice guy, but great show. Great show for
Yeah, he's made the rounds doing Halloween events, not only at Cedar Fair parks, but some of the other chains have brought him in as well. So, uh, part of his act, or different things that he can do, it's perfectly geared for the mature audiences during the Halloween season. Now let's talk about a show that debuted last year. I
Mhm.
believe it's back this year. We're talking about Nightwalkers in the Showplace Theater. You love that show.
I did. It seems like that show was very polarizing. There was like maybe 10-15% just absolutely hated it and wouldn't watch it, but the vast majority loved it. And the energy that show brought, I mean, the bikes and stuff like that, we'd seen all season. That wasn't a big deal, but this was kind of like Hot Blooded and Dead Awakening in terms of it had a vague storyline to it. It didn't exactly tell a story, but it had a horror movie theme with the cheerleader and the guy running off, and she essentially joins the dark side, and it's a lot of emotions packed into that half hour. But one thing I did notice is that they have the screen in the background, and the image changes so much that it's like if you're under the age of 8 and you watch that, you're going to get diagnosed with ADHD before you know it, because they say that like screens and tablets can cause that sort of thing. So I always wondered, like, if they're sitting at a show, because I've seen it at rock concerts too, and sometimes kids go to that stuff. Those flickering screens, I mean, just wow. But nonetheless, the show is like super high energy. The stunts are really cool. Um, my favorite part of the whole show is when the trampoline guy on the tramp wall would climb up on the truss. That's on like the awning over the stage and would jump off that. I thought that was awesome. It's probably not a big deal for him, but it looks like it's 1,000 feet tall to us. But very, very cool show.
Yeah, there was always a lot going on with it. Took me a couple of times watching it to really catch on to everything that was going on because there was just so much. No matter where you looked, there was action. There was the dancers, the bike people, the two main characters. You had the screen in the background, as you mentioned. So a lot going on, but high energy, and the crowds really seemed to love it. I mean, it was one of those shows that you would walk by Showplace any time of the night during Haunt, and it was standing room only. And that's a great thing when people want to come back and see it more than once. And you have these guests that saw that show, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 times. And you're talking about a 6-week run here. So when you want to come back and continue to watch that over and over again, I think you got a winner on your hand.
Absolutely. With theme park shows, you got Disney and stuff where, if you go to Animal Kingdom, you have to see the Festival of the Lion King. But for the vast majority of theme park shows, it's something to do. And sometimes you're like, oh, that was pretty good. But for that, like, we have to go see that again. That's an impressive feeling to pull out of the audience, you know? But yeah,
Yeah, and I think too with those shows that we just talked about, these five that we picked out as what we thought were the five greatest Halloween haunt shows of all time at Kings Island. It gave the performers too, I think, a chance to showcase their skills a little bit more than you might see in a summer show.
I completely agree. And, just seeing the performers on social media and stuff, they always talk about how much they miss Hot Blooded and all that. So I think they had a lot of fun with it too. It's you got to be fun, racy. None of it was really insulting to the performers. I don't think it ever went that direction as far as too racy or anything like that. But it was. They probably enjoyed that. I'm in the show and we're telling a story rather than I'm dancing to these 10 or 15 songs in the course of a half hour. But looking forward to Nightwalkers coming back. I've seen some posts on social media saying there's going to be some changes this year. I'm not going to say them because I'm not entirely certain and it's not my position, but looking forward to seeing it. But make sure that if you head to Halloween Haunt this year, this is 2023, you check out Nightwalkers because it's going to be a good time.
Well, let me ask you this,
Hmm.
Ryan. We talked about, you've got these sinister shows, you've got the indoor mazes, you've got the scare zones, and you also have some of the best night rides on the planet during Halloween Haunt.
Hmm.
Um, of all those different elements of this event, what's your favorite
The
part?
shows, because I feel like they've got there's a certain box that you have to fit into when it comes to theme park shows during the summer and during Halloween haunts. Now, there's two different directions you can go. You can have Good Morning Boys and Boils and Ghouls and all that stuff, and have it kiddie, and then it's just kind of like anything else. But when it's kind of like, well, we're going to push the limits a little bit, which this often does. That's something I really enjoy. Love night rides, love the mazes, but I always look forward to seeing the shows being released.
Yeah, but that's where I always saw a lot of the, guests that during the summer they're riding rides all the time,
Mhm.
but during the Halloween season, I always saw them at the shows.
Absolutely. All right. Well, make sure you check out the shows at Halloween Haunt this year. I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.